Miriam learned early how to be strong. In her family, strength meant silence. It meant swallowing tears, solving problems alone, and never letting your voice shake. Her mother used to say, "The world is not gentle with soft people," and Miriam believed her. By the time she was 32, she had built a life that looked impressive from the outside: a steady job as a community program manager, a small apartment she kept spotless, and a reputation for being dependable. People came to her when things fell apart. She listened, she organized, she fixed. And when they left, grateful and lighter, she stayed behind carrying her own unspoken weight. No one ever asked how she was doing, and even if they had, she wouldn't have known how to answer. The first crack appeared on an ordinary Tuesday. Miriam was leading a workshop at a community center on resilience for women who had survived difficult circumstances. She had designed the session carefully. Slides, activities, quotes neatly arranged. Halfway through, she asked the group to share a moment when they had felt strong despite fear. A young woman named Aisha spoke first. Her voice trembled as she described leaving an abusive home with nothing but a backpack and a child in her arms. As she spoke, tears slipped down her face. The room grew quiet, heavy with respect. When Aisha finished, she looked embarrassed and tried to apologize for crying. Miriam smiled professionally and said, "Thank you for sharing." That took courage. But inside, something tightened. A familiar ache pressed against her chest. She felt the room watching her, waiting for guidance, for wisdom. She clicked to the next slide and continued, her voice steady. Then, unexpectedly, her throat closed. The words blurred on the screen. Her heart began to pound. She tried to speak, but nothing came out. "I just need a moment," she said, surprised by how small her voice sounded. She turned away, pretending to adjust the projector. Her hands were shaking. The strength she had relied on for years suddenly felt brittle, like glass under pressure. The room waited. In that silence, Miriam felt an urge she had spent a lifetime resisting, the urge to tell the truth. She turned back to the group. "I teach resilience," she said slowly, "but I realize I've never told you what it costs me to stand here." The words felt dangerous, like stepping onto thin ice. "I'm good at helping others be brave," she continued, "because it keeps me from admitting how afraid I am of my own feelings." Her eyes burned. She did not wipe the tears away. "I don't talk about this," she said, her voice breaking. "But I wake up most days feeling like I'm failing at something I can't name. I carry everyone else's stories because it's easier than sharing my own." No one interrupted. No one looked away. "I thought strength meant never needing help," Miriam whispered. "But right now, I don't feel strong. I feel exposed." The room stayed quiet for a long moment. Then Aisha stood up and walked toward her. "You just gave us permission to breathe," she said gently. "Thank you." One by one, the women began to speak. Not in response to the worksheet. Not to impress or perform. They spoke about shame, about loneliness, about the fear of being seen and rejected. Laughter mixed with tears. The workshop transformed into something alive, something raw and human. When the session ended, several women stayed behind to hug Miriam. She felt something unfamiliar settle inside her chest, not pride, not relief, but connection. That night, Miriam went home and sat on the floor of her apartment. The silence felt different now. It wasn't empty. It was full of unanswered questions. If vulnerability could create that kind of kindness in a room full of strangers, what might it do in her own life? The next test came with her father. They spoke weekly, their conversations predictable and safe. He asked about work. She asked about his health. They avoided anything tender. That evening, he mentioned casually that he might sell the family home. "I didn't know you were thinking about that," Miriam said. "Well," he replied, "your mother loved that house." It feels strange to keep it now. Miriam felt a familiar tightening, the instinct to stay composed. Instead, she took a breath. Baba, she said, I miss her more than I admit. There was a pause on the line. I do too, he said quietly. Something opened. I've been pretending I'm fine, Miriam continued. But I'm not. I feel like I lost not just her, but a part of myself. Her father exhaled slowly. I thought I had to be strong for you, he said. I didn't want to burden you with my grief. They talked for over an hour, sharing memories they had both been carrying alone. When the call ended, Miriam realized how much kindness had been hiding behind their mutual silence, waiting for honesty to invite it out. Vulnerability, she learned, was not about oversharing or weakness. It was about telling the truth with care. Weeks later, Miriam noticed changes in her work. She began meetings by asking how people really were, and she answered the same question honestly. She admitted when she didn't know something. She asked for help. At first, it felt uncomfortable, like walking without armor. But instead of losing respect, she gained trust. Her colleague Samira once said, when you share your struggles, it makes it safer for the rest of us to be human. The biggest shift, however, happened with herself. On difficult mornings, Miriam stopped scolding herself for feeling tired or sad. She placed a hand over her heart and acknowledged the feeling instead of pushing it away. She began journaling, not to fix her emotions, but to listen to them. She cried without apologizing. She rested without guilt. One afternoon, she returned to the community center to run another workshop. This time, she didn't hide behind slides. She told her story, not as a lesson, but as an offering. I used to believe vulnerability was risky, she said. But what's riskier is living disconnected, from ourselves and from each other. After the session, a teenage girl approached her, eyes downcast. I thought I was broken because I feel too much, the girl said. But hearing you, maybe I'm not. Miriam smiled softly. You're not broken, she said. You're brave. As the girl walked away, Miriam felt a quiet certainty settle in her bones. Kindness, she realized, does not always arrive wrapped in comfort. Sometimes it comes disguised as courage, the courage to be seen, to speak honestly, to admit we need one another. The power of vulnerability was not that it made pain disappear. It was that it transformed pain into connection. It turned isolation into belonging. It allowed kindness to flow in directions Miriam had never imagined. That night, as she looked out her window at the city lights, she no longer felt like she had to hold everything together alone. For the first time in years, she felt whole, not because she was strong, but because she was real.